All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Three, two, one. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Phillies Talk. It's Phillies Talk podcast, and the Phillies are in the playoffs. Let me hear it out there. Let's hear all
Yay!
this
Hurrah!
screaming.
Everybody hits.
It's Rich Baxter along with Matt Veasey talking Phillies baseball. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing wonderful, Rich. I'd be doing better if we were up 2-0, but I'll take a split.
Yeah. One and one. It's been a long time since we've been podcasting here. We last spoke probably early September, well before the playoffs, and of course, the Phillies have made the playoffs for 2022, and they go into Atlanta with a first game win, and then they split last night 1-1, and we're going back to Philly on Friday evening, early evening, 4:37 on Friday. What kind of excitement do you think is building Philadelphia?
I think it's going to be a zoo down there, frankly, on Friday and Saturday, Rich. Especially Saturday if they win on Friday. But I expect a zoo on Friday. They're handing out the rally towels for the first time in 11 years. They won't be white any longer. That's actually an MLB regulation now. Can't have white. I think that has to do with affecting the background or something. But they're going to have, I believe, red rally towels, which fits us perfectly. With the Red October theme.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be. It's a sellout. It's not going to be a sellout like Atlanta has a sellout where thousands of them don't show up. This is going to be like the old days. It's going to be a packed 45,000, fans, or maybe a little less than that, but roughly that. And I'm ready.
Yeah. I didn't get that Atlanta, why people didn't show. They evidently bought the tickets, and that's what they go by. But yeah, a lot of people failed to show up to see their Braves. And this isn't the first time that that's happened down in Atlanta. It seems like that seems to be an issue with them down there. And I remember Tom McCarthy on one of the broadcasts saying that, they say it's sold out, but it doesn't look sold out. So
It
that's
wouldn't
an
surprise me
anomaly.
if they had like maybe some different groups out there, or I really don't know if there's a policy of how many tickets you can buy. But you may have had these ticket organizations, or even individuals who thought, let me scarf up 10, 15, 20 tickets and I'll sell them. And then, just you had a few thousand of them and then they couldn't get rid of the tickets, maybe at the prices they were looking for. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that's the case, but I would speculate that some of it has to do with not individual ticket holders actually buying the tickets.
Uh-huh.
And then you have some who, for various reasons, couldn't get down there. It was a weekday day game, so there were probably reasons people just couldn't get off when they thought they could or hoped they could. So who knows? I'm not going to make excuses for them. Crazy Atlanta fans. They and so annoy me, Rich, that once a couple things started going their way last night, and they started with that infernal tomahawk chop. There's nothing in baseball, not even the wave, that I hate more than the tomahawk chop and that war cry. So I would like nothing more than to sweep them this weekend and never have to go back there again this year.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And what an opportunity the Phillies had last night to do just that and sweep two games out of Atlanta. But we'll take the split, I think, in Atlanta. But game three is going to be, I think, a Phillies must win. They must win game three. They have to approach it like that. And Aaron Nola is going to be on the mound for the Phils. They faced a tough pitcher last night with Wright. He's been aces for Atlanta. Kyle Wright, young guy, was 21-5 during the regular season with a 3.19. The Phils just couldn't get many hits. I think they only had 3 hits against them. And they're not going to win many ball games getting 3 hits unless they're all home runs with guys on base. But, the Phillies just couldn't put the Braves back against the wall yesterday, and they had a great opportunity to do that.
And they only had two of their hits off of right, and he only walked one batter, so they didn't have many base runners to begin with. But they did have early on a couple of opportunities with runners in scoring position. I know when Harper doubled, he got over to third with less than two outs, and they couldn't get him home. So Bohm had the right idea, one time, but he just hit the ball too hard right at the first baseman. Harper wasn't able to score. If he could have hit that ball to the second baseman or a little slower to the first baseman, the run would have scored. Harper would have scored, but it was what it was. I mean, he had the right idea. It came off the bat a little too hard right at the first baseman, and there was no chance for Harper to score there. And that was really, the Phillies' best scoring opportunity. And then on the Philly side, you mentioned Wright, but Zach Wheeler pitched an excellent game too into the sixth inning. He had only allowed 3 hits as it was the whole game, and the sixth inning it was just like dink, dank, dunk. Finding a hole up the middle, C&I single, or 10-12 hop single up the middle for an RBI. It was just, and of course the whole thing, that whole sixth inning rally for Atlanta. It starts out with a hit batsman. He certainly wasn't trying to hit Acuna, but he was busting him in a little bit, and the ball just ran in on right at Acuna's arms, hit him. And that ends up being the game-winning run when he finally scores, and he scores with 2 outs on a sharp hit ball, but one that Rhys Hoskins probably should have handled at first base. And we can say all we want. Hoskins makes that play. We get out of the inning. It's 0-0. Who knows what happens? But the Phillies didn't score after that, So I don't know. Would they've still been playing into, the 13th, 14th, 15th inning? I mean, we don't know what would have happened if they would have got out of that inning scoreless. But so part of that's on Hoskins. Part of that's on Wheeler for hitting the leadoff batter, and then getting hit a little bit himself after that. But a big part of yesterday, I think the biggest part is on that offense, as you mentioned, 3 hits, and they were just 2. I think it was the only walk was that walk that Wright issued. So the Atlanta pitching was excellent yesterday between Wright and all 3 of their bullpen arms, AJ Minter, Raisel Iglesias, Kenley Jansen. They all shut the Phillies down. Bilotti and Syndergaard were okay out of the bullpen for the Phils, but by then, the 3 runs had already scored. So this was a case where the offense just didn't come through the way it had the previous game when they put up 7 runs in the first 5 innings. They were very timely hits. They were hitting with runners in scoring position. They were swinging early, attacking the Atlanta pitchers early. They were swinging at strikes far too many times yesterday. I watched particularly the 2 guys who are really slumping right now. The first 2 hitters in the lineup, Kyle Schwarber and Rhys Hoskins. Far too many times I saw them swinging at balls and letting strikes go by them. Schwarber in particular, a couple of fastballs right down the middle in 2 different at-bats. These are the kind of pitches that this guy, when he's on, just punishes. He'll pummel them into the right field seats, and just watch him go by. And then he swings and misses at, tough breaking balls that are out of the strike zone. And Hoskins was doing the same thing. But really nobody hit yesterday except for Harper. Harper looks like he's finally coming around, which could be big coming back here to Philly.
Yeah, it would be nice to see Schwarber pick it up, and maybe it's a little butterflies for these guys. They were in Atlanta for 2 games and not hitting very well, Schwarber and Hoskins. But some other guys are hitting pretty well. As you said, Harper, Castellanos was the hero of the day in Game 1. I think he went 3 for 5, something like that, or 3 for 3, and Harper went 3 for 5 in that game. But, yeah, we've had some guys that are hitting. But if you look over at the Braves, Ronald Acuna Jr. is killing the Phillies. And Matt Olson, is also starting to kill the Phillies. So these are two guys that I wish, maybe in Game 3, um, they would consider maybe walking them at some point. Like I'm a big proponent of take the bat out of one of these hot hitters' hands. Don't let them kill you every time. Let somebody else try to do it. You have Swanson behind Acuna. He could very well do it. But, these hot batters, it pains me to see them go up to the plate and constantly hit the Phillies and nothing be done about it.
It's a, in all honesty, Rich, it's a talented lineup. I mean, they're the world champions, and they're the world champions, and I think they won 5 straight NL East titles. They they won 101 games this year. You got to give them their due at a certain point. They're a really good team, and when you look up and down their lineup, uh, any number of players can beat you. So even the bottom of their lineup, they haven't come through against the Phillies yet. But a guy like Michael Harris, the second, who could be the NL Rookie of the Year this year. You got guys down there like Ozuna, and depending on the arm of the Phillies, you have Rosario or Grossman. They got Arcia playing second base mostly right now, but you know they're a talented lineup at the top. And if you avoid that top, these guys could burn you at any point at the bottom. But you're right in saying Acuna and Olson are so far they have come through against the Phillies, and they're stars. That's what the Braves have to hope that will happen. Swanson's had a couple of timely hits, had a timely hit for them in that attempted comeback in the first game. You've got Riley, who had a nice hit yesterday, and they made a couple of sensational defensive plays yesterday. Dansby Swanson going back on a ball, Riley over near the stands, near the tarp roll up. They got big hits from Travis d'Arnaud during the 2 games. Travis d'Arnaud, who the Phillies traded 13 years ago as part of that deal to acquire Roy Halladay, is now coming back to bite them. Imagine that, all these 13 years later. This is a good lineup. This is an excellent team. And you saw the strength of their bullpen last night. When the Phillies had them down 7-1 the other night, they didn't burn those top arms. They used more of their back end, middle relief, kind of the arms that they bring in the 6th, 7th, 8th innings. Yesterday, we saw the Phillies have to face their top relief arms. The lefty Minter, the righty Iglesias, and then the closer Jansen, and they shut the Phillies down. That's a recipe for disaster for the Phillies. You don't want to be going into the late innings having to face those guys trailing. So I think a big key these next 2 games is going to be get a lead, on whoever the Braves throw out there as the starting pitcher, and then use our bullpen at the end.
Yeah, and our bullpen let us down a little bit in Game 1. Let the Braves come back 7-6 with a Matt Olson huge home run. And I was frankly worried that the Phillies were going to give up that game. It was like, come on, guys, you had a big lead, and it evaporated in a quick New York minute, so to speak. And
yeah, it wasn't, Rich, it wasn't that the bullpen, quote, the whole bullpen let them down, but a couple guys did. Brogdon did not look good at all, and that's he's becoming worrisome. But then after that, that made it 7-3. But then Dominguez, and Alvarado came in, and they were excellent. Brad Hand came in and got 2 huge outs after Brogdon had let it get to 7-3. And then Sir Anthony came in, 2 shutout perfect frames with 3 strikeouts. Sir Anthony looked, dynamite. Rolled through 2 innings on, I believe, only 18 pitches, and he ended up earning the win. Alvarado followed Dominguez with another perfect inning and a strikeout. He's back to looking great. So they were looking really good until Eflin gave up the bomb. And I'm not as concerned as some people are about Eflin. I actually like the way the bullpen sets up. If he can be the closer, it's an experiment right now, but I think it's one that can work. He has a starter's repertoire. He's a very talented pitcher. I think he's the kind of mentality. He has the kind of mentality where he's unflappable, so it's not going to bother him. And you need that. Every closer, we all know, every closer throughout history, except maybe Mariano Rivera, gives up the big bomb at some point in a key moment. And it's how do you bounce back from that? And I believe Eflin has the mentality to bounce back from that well. And this team, the bullpen here, could really set up well if he is the closer. So I'm fine with keeping him. I know Topper said that it's going to be mix and match depending on where they come, what the situation is. Maybe looking at the matchups, how historically have the hitters done against a particular pitcher. So as dominant as Sir Anthony looked, we certainly could see him get the ninth inning now, and maybe Eflin drop back into an eighth inning role. But I don't think there's going to be a set role. I think it's he's already said he's going to take a look at the matchups, look at the statistics, and make his calls based on his knowledge, his gut feeling, and what the statistics are telling him. But the bullpen didn't blow it as a group the other day. There was a couple of Brogdon was terrible, and then before him, Bilotti had done well. So, you had four guys, Bilotti, Hand, especially Hand, Dominguez, and Alvarado, who were excellent. It was just Brogdon, stunk. And then Eflin, just gave up that bomb, to Matt Olson. And I'm not going to be overly worried, about the Phillies bullpen at this point. Yesterday, the Phillies, Bilotti and Syndergaard pitched shutout innings. So I'm not worried about the Phillies bullpen. I'm more worried about the bats. 3 hits yesterday that's never going to cut it. And when you come home, when you're going to have that crazy, crowd behind you, you have to feed off of that energy. Yeah. It has to be more like that first game where they take advantage, where they have smart at bats, where they actually hit strikes and get a lead. Getting a lead is ultra important in these next 2 games.
Yeah, they have to jump right out, as you said. Interestingly enough, here the day before the first playoff game in Philadelphia in many years, Atlanta doesn't name a pitcher yet. So Aaron Nola going up against undecided here for the Braves. So
neither team has named a starter for Saturday, which doesn't surprise us, I think, with the Phillies, because right now their fourth starter is completely up in the air. I would imagine that it's Bailey Falter, and then they'll have some combination of, just in case he, quote, falters early, they'll probably have somebody like Syndergaard or Gibson, to turn to as a long man, following him. But I'm not afraid of, sending Bailey Falter out there in Game 4. He's done well for the team. Sure, he's young. You keep an eye on him. You have those 2 veterans who could step in if something, if he just isn't up to it. But I think that just name Bailey Falter, just put it out there, make him your Game 4 starter at this point, and then you come back and with Ranger, for Game 5 if it's necessary. But let's hope it isn't,
Or maybe even Zach Wheeler on short rest.
I mean, maybe, but I just don't buy it. I think maybe you start Ranger and, tell Wheeler, say, hey, maybe, we may, if an emergency, we may try to go to you. But I am not a proponent of pitchers on short rest. It very frequently backfires. There's a reason why these guys, with their routines, with their normal rest, there's a reason why they give these guys, 3 days off between, their starts. So I think that I think it's a bad idea to bring Wheeler back on short rest. Ranger Suarez is perfectly capable of giving them a good outing, and they have some good long arms. And if you really want to bring back Wheeler. Let it be, in a bullpen situation. So I'm fine with the Saturday, Sunday being Falter and Suarez. Their situation is what it is right now with their starting rotation. You have to give these guys the best opportunity. The best opportunity is Suarez on regular rest, then Wheeler on short rest. In my opinion, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, and as you said, Rob Thompson, manager of the Phillies, he's got that 2-year extension on his managerial job here in Philadelphia. Are you surprised they announced that this early and around the playoffs?
No, pretty much everybody thought he earned it. I think he earned it, and I think it lends some stability to the organization. They're going to have some key decisions to make in the off season. They may be looking to bring in a couple of new players, and I think it helps sell your organization that, hey, this is our guy. He's in charge. He did a really nice job. The team finished something like 19 or 20 games over 500 during the time that he was the manager. He's led them to a playoff series win over a traditionally difficult to beat division champion in their ballpark, with a ton of sentiment on their side. When you think about it, when they had the red hot Albert Pujols going out into retirement, geez, I'm blanking here. Yadi Molina, going out on retirement. Maybe Wainwright, who knows? But and very talented team. This is the Goldschmidt, the third baseman. I'm drawing a blank. I'm getting old, Rich.
Yeah.
But this is that was a tremendous St. Louis Cardinals team, and for the Phillies to beat them, to sweep them, and I'm killing myself here. Nolan Arenado. Can't believe I couldn't. Yeah. I'm blanking out on Nolan Arenado. But when you have a team that has like Pujols, Goldschmidt, Arenado, when you got a leader, a proven veteran like Yadi Molina, and they had some good pitchers going. I mean, Mikolas was pitching a good game there in Game 2 against Noah for a while, and you got that home crowd, of St. Louis going against you, and they were able to beat them. I think it says a lot for Thompson that he was able to help turn this team around. 2 months without Bryce Harper in the lineup, a long stretch without Gene Segura also in the lineup. Some hitters who, Castellanos, who never did what you expected him to all year. And he was still able to pilot this team to a playoff berth, to a record that was 19, 20 games over 500, and a playoff series win, and now a split in Atlanta, another hostile environment. So good for Topper. He's been a baseball lifer. He's done everything that you could want in this game to prepare himself for this role. And now I think the Phillies have the right guy in that position now. Just leave him alone through the highs and the lows. There are going to be times when he's going to make some calls where the team's going to go into a little losing streak, and on Twitter, you're going to have the crazy, fanatical negativists, who are calling for heads left and right every time somebody does something bad. Mm-hmm. Thompson, just leave him alone. Let him be the manager for at least the next couple of years. Give him a couple of better pieces for next year, and I think you'll see the team maybe go to another level. But for focusing on this year, I don't think that the signing matters so much for this year. You were going to get what you're getting out of him no matter what, whether you had the contract now or next month. So for now, I think it's a good deal for the long haul, meaning the next couple of years. But I think he would say, and I'm certainly would say, let's worry about this weekend. Yeah,
let's get this NLDS behind us, and it's It's almost like I want to pinch myself. It's like Rip Van Winkle. I went to sleep towards the end of the season, and I woke up, and it's Phillies are in the playoffs or in the division series. They're very close to making the league championship series, and it's a dream. It's really a dream. The Phillies firing off at the right time. I guess they got hot at the right time when they faced St. Louis, and I hope they continue to stay hot. So we'll find out tomorrow with the first game in Philadelphia in what, since 2011, the playoffs. Your kid could have went to high school practically in the time, born and went to high school practically in the time that it took the Phillies to make the playoffs from 2011. So
Crazy to think of it, Rich, but there's like, little kid fans. I mean, I became a fan of the Phillies at age 9 and all the way back in 1971. And there's, not little kids, even younger than that now, 7, 8, 9, who are becoming Phillies fans, and they love Bryce Harper and JT Real Muto and Schwarber and all these guys. They're their heroes. And these little kids, they don't know anything about 2008,
yeah,
certainly not about 1993 or 1980,
yeah,
so other than what, dad or grandpa are telling them. So there's a lot of young Phillies fans out there now. Even, I don't know, how old would you have to be to not know the 2008 World Series champions? There's teenagers out there right now, who didn't have a firsthand experience with the 2008 Phillies. So yeah, it's crazy to think about it along those lines. It's been a long time, since we were really a contender, but they are a contender now. And like you said, it is exciting. They are close to getting to the league championship series, but I don't think that they went into St. Louis hot, and I don't think they were hot in St. Louis. I think, they really over the 14 games, they were away for 14 games, Rich. That last 10 game stretch of the regular season, all 3 cities on the road for 10 games to end the year. What masochist, in the Major League Baseball headquarters gave them that season ending schedule? I'd like to get, well, I think originally it wasn't that long. I think it was 7 games, but then Houston ended up, uh, it was originally at the beginning of the season, and then there was the work stoppage, so they had to push it to the end of the season, the Houston series. But it was just a kind of a real weird quirk that put them on the road for those 10 games at the end. And then
yeah,
you got 2 games in the playoffs, another 2 in Atlanta. 14 games over more than a 2-week period. This team was on the road. Just crazy when you think about it.
yeah,
And they weren't hot in those 14 games. They went 7-7. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
They
But during that
barely
7-7, they won at the right time.
they
You know, they
barely survived to make it to the wild card, and
and then they won the wild card. And you know what I think it is, Rich? Not so much being hot, but I think it just take it one game at a time. Just one
yeah,
game at a time. Don't think ahead to the next one. Don't worry about we got to win, so many out of so many.
uh-huh,
Just fight each game. And with the kind of talent that they have, they don't have I don't believe that they have the kind of talent that a team like the Dodgers or the Braves have. This all around type game talent. That has also some winning playoff experience to it. That's what these teams like Atlanta and Los Angeles have. But what they do have is they have some tough gamers, and what they just need to keep going out there and fighting one game at a time. To come out, don't worry about Saturday. Who cares about Saturday, Sunday? Tomorrow is what matters.
yeah,
Come out and fight and beat the Braves on Friday, and
yeah,
then we'll worry about Saturday. You
and
know what I
be
mean? So
loose, have fun like the Phillies have been doing, but get the job done, so to speak.
don't have any fun until after you win. Like have fun, rollicking fun if you happen to be winning. But I want some concentration during the games. I want smart play. I want them, hitting the opposite way with runners on base, advancing them. Hitting sacrifice flies when they have runners in scoring position. All the stuff that they did in game 1, Rich,
Yeah,
they didn't do in game 2. And hats off to Kyle Wright and the bullpen of the Braves for holding them down. But you also have to say, if you watch that game, the Phillies had opportunities, and they didn't cash them in. A couple of them very, very early in the game. And there's also a couple of hitters who just aren't swinging at the right pitches right now. So hopefully, we get more of a game one type production from the Phillies tomorrow than a game two type production. And I think some of the, being at home, back home that's got to make them feel so good. I mean, they haven't seen this ballpark. They haven't had any fans behind them except for, those who've traveled. And Phillies fans did travel over these last couple of series. But the thing is, you're going up against teams in the playoffs where they're putting 35,000 fans in the stands against you. Yeah. So tomorrow, the 45,000 fans will be in the Phillies corner. There are not going to be Braves fans with whole sections of Citizens Bank Park tomorrow. You know what I mean? That's going to be a Phillies ballpark. So the energy, they must feed off that energy. They can't allow Atlanta to suck the energy out of them. They have to feed off of that energy and bury Atlanta with, using that. The more the runs they put on the board early, the more pressure is going to be Atlanta, the more pressure the fans are going to put on.
Yeah. And this is our house, so we got to defend our house tomorrow.
Amen.
Citizens Bank Park. Wanted to remind our listeners out there, check out baseballtalkradio.com. It's the home for great baseball talk shows. We have a lot of teams on there. We have a couple Mets broadcasts. We have a baseball and barbecue with Len and Jeff. That's original podcast there. Great show. Baseball PhD with a few great guys from the Midwest there in Cleveland. Ed Casputis does that along with Farley and Mark. So check that show out. All at baseballtalkradio.com, as well as Phillies Talk Podcast. We're there. I do another show called Baseball Talk Radio Show with Gary Mack, who also does a Mets Musings podcast, my good buddy Gary Mack in New York. So check it out, baseballtalkradio.com. And to close out the show, Matt, I think we'll talk a little bit about a guy that was a little maligned earlier in the season for his lack of good play, so to speak. And that, of course, Castellanos. And Castellanos made up for it, in my mind, in Game 1. He saved that game with the catch. That catch is going to be forever etched in the minds of Phillies fans, I think. And he's cleaned the slate for me.
Well, Rich, he had a big game, and he had a big game when they needed it. He comes up with 3 hits, 3 RBIs, a great defensive play there, and a couple other good defensive plays during the course of the game. He had a game, and these Phillies could really use that as we move along here. Is somebody to come out, step up, and be a hero. Each game. They had no heroes yesterday. Zach Wheeler tried to be it for a while, and then it just all broke down on him. Mostly not his fault, although, hitting a batter didn't help anything, but he didn't do it on purpose. So, I can't really lay a lot of that yesterday on Wheeler. He was the only guy that really tried to step up and be a hero. Nobody else really did anything yesterday. So, I won't say that Castellanos made up in Game 1 for the entirety of the season in which he let them down, but he came through. And if he can get hot, yesterday he was 0 for 3. So if he can get hot, and they struck out twice. I apologize. He left 2 runners on base, but if he can get hot, great. But he went 3 for 5, but then he went 0 for 3. So I'm not saying that Castellanos is suddenly hot now. But they need somebody. He came up with a big game when he had to. But if he's not going to be hot, and he isn't necessarily just off of one game, somebody, each game, somebody's got to step up the way he did that game. You got Schwarber and Hoskins who aren't doing anything. They could, and we know how Kyle Schwarber is. He could be doing nothing for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden it clicked. He got 2 home runs in one game. That's fine. If he does that tomorrow, Great. That's be the hero tomorrow, somebody. You know what I mean? And then
Step up.
Saturday, somebody else be the hero tomorrow. I mean, Aaron Nola can be the hero tomorrow if he can get a few runs. Saturday, they're probably going to need a couple of hitters to be the heroes. So, Ricky Batalico, I don't usually ask you the questions, Rich. You usually ask me questions, but
Right.
I'll throw it at you. Ricky Batalico tweeted out a couple hours ago an interesting question. And Rob Thompson, just to preface it for you, Thompson has already come out and said that Schwarber and Hoskins are staying as 1-2 in the batting order. He's already said that. So Batalico's question is, would you take either Schwarber or Hoskins out of the lineup for game 3?
Completely out of the lineup.
Right. So you'd probably be talking about if St. Louis goes at a righty, do you have, I don't know, do you have you could move Bohm over to first base. Forget about the righty. You could have Bohm over at first base with, going to third base with Edmundo Sosa. So you have a strong defender at third, and you have Bohm instead of Hoskins at first, and maybe you have better hitting, the way Hoskins is hitting these days. But do you take a 30 home run, bat out of your lineup, with Hoskins? I don't know that you can take Schwarber out as bad as he's hitting. You can't take 46 homers out of your lineup, but maybe you can drop them down. Maybe you have somebody like Segura move up in the order. Maybe you could have Segura, Bohm as your top 2 hitters. I'm just wondering if there's something else,
Yeah.
What would you think about any of that? Or do you just do what Thompson's doing and dance with the ones that brung you?
Yeah, I think he's going to stay with Hoskins and Schwarber, of course.
Well, he is.
Schwarber is a no-brainer. You have to have that threat in the lineup, and he may come around tomorrow like we've seen him do many a time before. Hoskins, he's probably got a little of the nervousness in him. He's certainly capable of hitting a baseball and playing well, and it's just going to be a matter of he can get comfortable and contribute to this team. He brought you to the dance. You got to stay with him.
Well, he's going to. So I was just curious if you would, and it sounds like you would. So they got to come through. Those 2 guys at the top. I mean, you just cannot continue to get over every game out of the top 2 hitters in your lineup. Just can't do it. So these guys are must contributors at this point. You say that tomorrow's a must win for the Phillies. I won't necessarily say that because I think it's one game at a time. And if they lose tomorrow, you just got to go win Saturday, and then you worry about that, and then you worry about Sunday after that. But it certainly would be huge if they could win. Puts a ton of pressure on Atlanta for Saturday. But I think it's a must game for me for at least one of those guys to bust out. They cannot continue to get nothing out of the top 2 hitters in their lineup.
Yeah.
They're two biggest, except for Bryce Harper. They're 2 biggest home run hitters. 76 home runs between the 2 of them. Got to get something out of them.
They're just going to have to buckle down and get comfortable, get their swing. Got to be nervous out there. You're on a national stage. You're this, you're that. Maybe they can block
Schwarber's
it
won
out.
a World Series. I can't imagine Schwarber's nervous. Just don't seem like the nervous type.
Yeah.
Maybe Reese is. I don't know, but it's hard to ever tell with Reese because Reese is usually either laid back or he's got the pissed off face, where he's mad at the umps, when he's batting, and he shows a lot of emotion in the dugout, when other guys are doing things, but when he's up there, he's very laid back. He seems very relaxed as a hitter. It doesn't seem like anything's bothering him except when calls go against him.
Well, we'll see. Game 3, just a little more than 24 hours away, 25 hours away as we're doing this podcast. We're going to be at the game, so we'll give you a first-hand account of what's going on during the game in the future podcast, maybe towards the end of the weekend. And hopefully by the next time we talk to you, the Phillies will be in the National League Championship Series, if not playing Game 5 in Atlanta on Sunday, because that's what I would like to do on our next podcast is maybe get together for Sunday and see one way or another, are the Phillies going to the League Championship Series? So, again, we're going to be enjoying the game on Friday, and I can't wait for it. Playoff baseball gets my hair standing up on my arms the way the Phillies fans are, because it's insane. I mean, it's
Sure.
like you put your finger into a socket, and I shocked myself the other day changing a bulb, so I got the feeling now. But it was like you put your finger in a 110 socket and hold it there for about a minute, and that's what the feeling is in that stadium.
Well, you know what, Rich? Today is today, and we're recording this on what is it, Thursday, October 13th.
Yep.
Today is the anniversary of a couple of most massive Phillies playoff wins in history. On this date in 1993 was the date that the 1993 Phillies won the pennant, beat the Braves 6-3 at Veterans Stadium. Tommy Green pitched a great game. The Phillies got to Greg Maddux that day. I think they got a big 2-run homer from Dave Hollins. Dutch had a big 2 RBI hit. Mickey Morandini came up with a 2-run triple, all off of Greg Maddux, and they beat the mighty Braves 6-3 to win the NL pennant. That was 1993. And then 15 years later on this date in 2008, Game 4 of the 2008 NLCS in Los Angeles is that epic game where Phillies are trailing by 2 runs in the 8th inning, 1 out. Shane Victorino comes through, the Flying Hawaiian, who will be throwing out the first ball tomorrow, by the way. The Flying Hawaiian hits a 2-run homer to tie the game. And then a few batters later with 2 outs, Matt Stairs hits that famous Matt Stairs hits one into the night. And the Phillies win Game 4 of the NLCS, and they looked like, Rich, 1 out in the trailing by 2 runs or 1 out in the top of the 8th against the Dodgers in LA. It looked for all the world like LA was about to tie the series at 2-2, and instead those 2 big blasts from Victorino and Stairs give the Phillies the win and a 3-1 lead in the NLCS. I mean, what a difference that is from tied 2-2, and the next game is in LA. So their fans are going to be crazy. Or now all of a sudden the Phillies have them down 3-1. And Cole Hamels, I believe it was, put them away the next game. But the big Matt Stairs home run, that was 14 years ago today.
Wow. And I remember that home run. I still see it like sailing through the open space.
Stairs hits one into the night.
As they showed that ball. But
probably the best call in his entire career.
Yeah. I'm going to have the Cole Hamels jersey on tomorrow, probably maybe even this windbreaker as well, because it's going to be probably a little chilly as the sun goes down in Philly tomorrow. So.
I said that he hits one into the night. He ripped one into the night. Stairs rips one into the night. Oops.
Yes, he did. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of Phillies Talk Podcast, everybody. Don't forget, hit like, subscribe to the podcast. We're over on YouTube as well. Just look up Phillies Talk Podcast. Hopefully I'll have a URL that matches that soon. I think YouTube is going to that on certain channels, and on every channel, actually. So look for that, but look for the podcast as well. It's Phillies Talk Podcast with Rich Baxter. You have to add that because there's another Phillies Talk Podcast that sort of crept in and took the name overnight a few years ago, but there's room for all of us. Matt, it was a great pleasure talking to you again. So glad we'll be taking in a game tomorrow, playoff game, and I can't wait for it.
Yep, and fans can follow me at Phillies Bell, like the bell that rings in the outfield when we win or hit a homer, at Phillies Bell on Twitter.
Very awesome, and it's worth the follow, let me tell you. And, of course, you can find the blog at fightinphillies.com. It's also the home for Phillies Talk Podcast, one of the home for it. But, yeah, check out the blog as well. Stop by. Got some written articles there and stuff over the years. So Love to have you stop by. Well, thanks very much, everyone. Take care. Go Phils!
Go Phils.